What's up, everybody? We are your friendly neighborhood gamers, and my name is Dylan Wren.
I'm Andrew Kimball.
And I'm Aubrey Kimball.
And today we are going to be talking about the spiritual successor to Valve's Left 4 Dead series, Back 4 Blood. It's a 4-player co-op arcade-style first-person shooter zombie apocalypse game. That is a lot of descriptors there. And it is a great game to gather your friends up with, grab some guns, and go kill some zombies. So we are going to give you just kind of a brief mini review about the game. So let's start there. What are some of the things that we liked about this game? Andrew, I'll throw it to you first.
Correction, Dylan. They're not zombies. Yeah. They are ridden.
That is true.
Commenters. I corrected it for you.
There were plenty of graffitis in the game saying, don't use the zombie word. So,
yeah, but on a more serious note, this game essentially feels like Left 4 Dead. Like, it wears its inspiration on its sleeve, and that was what I was hoping for going into it, and that was what we got. I don't think it quite hit the heights, and we'll get into that in the back half, but it went for that formula. It went for that gameplay. It just wanted to be Left 4 Dead 3, and I think in a lot of ways it succeeded.
Yeah, and it was made by Turtle Rock Studios, and so it was made by a lot of, I guess, the studio that broke off eventually, or that made the original Left 4 Dead. Left 4 Dead 2, eventually they made Evolve, and then they made this game. I don't think there were others that they made in between all of that, but so it really is, like we said, spiritual successor, but you could definitely tell that they were building off of, like, these are our Left 4 Dead 3 ideas, I think, a lot of it. So
yeah, and honestly, like, the rest of my good points pretty much are just breaking that statement apart. Like, they did the AI director thing that Left 4 Dead had, and I thought that was, you have to have that in these games, and I thought Back 4 Blood did an okay job. As the more I played, the more I realized that it wasn't quite as good as Valve had done it. The shooting felt amazing. It felt like Left 4 Dead, but in a modern era where you can look down your sight, where you can sprint. I think they were sprinting in Left 4 Dead, but like just all those things that are normal now. And when you go back to Left 4 Dead 2 just on a whim on some Saturday afternoon, you're like, hey, that was a great game, let me go check it out. You realize, oh, there's a lot of, we've come a long way in shooters, and so this was just that progression with that Left 4 Dead formula. And then, yeah, like you mentioned at the top of the show, is just great with friends. I mean, honestly, I don't feel the draw to play it as much solo, and so that kind of speaks to, like, this game was meant for a group of friends, or when you play it with randoms, it doesn't feel the same. Like, it feels like this is a game that you need to play with your friends. And yeah, so that basically everything that like, all of my good bullet points for this game can essentially be summed up in, they took that Left 4 Dead formula, they modernized it, they put their, like, slight twist on it, and then they released it.
Yeah. Aubrey, what about you? What are some of the things that you liked or want to expand on from Andrew's list?
I mean, the biggest thing is what he mentioned. It feels like Left 4 Dead 2 or even 1. Like, it feels like we were playing Left 4 Dead like 4 or 5. Like, if the series had been allowed to continue, this would have been kind of its natural progression. It didn't get the, like, steps to include a lot of features that the new ones do.
Yeah.
I appreciate the simplicity of the card system. As someone who's not super into talent trees or min-maxing or stuff like that, it's pretty straightforward to, like, okay, I tend to gravitate towards sniper rifles, so I'll pick up this card, this card, this card, and this card that, like, help with snipers, and then move on. I'm sure it could, like, if you min-maxed it, it could, like, super positively affect your game, but also it's not so consequential that you're like, gotta go build this deck. Like, I didn't think I was going to enjoy the adding sights and scopes and silencers and like all the modifications you can do to your gun, because I'm not a big shooter player. Literally, I think the last one I sunk any time into was Left 4 Dead.
Yeah.
And so it took Left 4 Dead 5 for me to like come back. That being said, again, it was straightforward. Color-coded system. I've played enough RPGs that I kind of know the color system, and so it was very straightforward, easy to hop into, and just fun. It's just a fun game.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with both of you. I think, like we've all kind of hit on, if you liked Left 4 Dead or played Left 4 Dead in the past and enjoyed it, this is a modernized Left 4 Dead, basically. And so I think it holds up. I think it's a fun way to go through these sort of set piecey type of levels, and experience the little bit of the story that there is. I enjoyed like the modernized shooting where you could aim down sights, where you could like the variety of weapons was increased, and now you could put different attachments on them, customize it a little bit to your preferences, rather than just like, here is the shotgun from Left 4 Dead. It's like one of 3 different shotguns that all basically feel pretty similar.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, I'm going to pick this gun up, but I'm going to put this silencer on it and this like magazine attachment on it so that it feels a little bit different.
Yeah, well, you made that shotgun into essentially a sniper rifle. Like
exactly. And I agree with you too. The card system, I went into it kind of skeptical, but they do make, like, at least for the lower difficulties, I think it's pretty hard to build like a bad deck. They're all going to do something and be helpful, and they do make it pretty easy to understand what cards fit in with how you are playing the game. Like you said, if you really sat down and like min-maxed it, I'm sure you could tailor like a really, really good build, and that might be necessary for like the nightmare modes. But if you're just playing it to have fun, it's, you can kind of build whatever you want and not have to worry about someone yelling at you because you're not playing like the most efficient way or something. And I liked that they added like weak spots and stuff into like some of the special infected, because in the previous games, especially like some of the tankier enemies, it kind of just felt like you were shooting like a bullet sponge. And so having those weak spots made it feel a little less spongy, because it was like, oh, okay, I'm supposed to shoot the weak spots. That's what I need to do. If I'm not shooting those, it makes sense because they're damage resistant or something. And I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention the fact that it's on Game Pass, which meant that none of us had to buy it. We could just all play it on Game Pass. And that really opened, if we had all had to purchase it, I don't know that we would have gotten 4 of us who all had it and could play together right at the start anyway. And so the fact that it was just kind of like, hey, here you go, here, get your friends together and play it, meant that we all pretty much went through the entire campaign with various party makeups.
Right.
So I think this does a good job of, like pointing out all the things that we really like about this game. Obviously, there's always room for improvement for some games. So let's hit on that. What were some of the things that you didn't like, or that you wish had been different, or you might hope to see updated maybe in the future, either in a sequel or a patch or something? What are some of those things for you guys?
Well, I have not beaten this game fully. I am at like the last chapter, because even on the lowest difficulty, it just gets brutal. It gets insane.
Yeah.
And if you're with randoms, if you're with bots, like, it really is just a grind to try to finish this game up. And I do think that that's something that they need to address. The card system, I liked it conceptually. I think that it just didn't quite go quite as far as it needed to be worth having in there. I guess I'm gonna kind of play Joe on this one, but it kind of felt unnecessary because it didn't take that full step. And I agree, Aubrey, I like the simplicity and not having to spend all this time min-maxing and like building a deck, but it also didn't feel like quite consequential enough. So it was kind of like they were a little too timid with it, I guess, would be maybe a way to sum it up.
Yeah, well, and the fact that you would have to min-max it to see a dramatic improvement.
Right.
Yeah.
In your gameplay.
Yeah, because like a lot of the cards were things like, 5 extra health and like 5% trauma resistance. And it's like, am I really going to notice that if I pick that card? And maybe I just shouldn't be picking that card. Who knows? But like there definitely are some cards that did feel like they would make a huge impact. There were some that, like, if you were crouching, you didn't take friendly fire anymore or something like that, which I can see making a huge impact for some of those higher difficulties. That, which kind of brings me to one of my points that I'll talk about in just a second here about friendly fire. But it did feel like most of the cards were pretty inconsequential, which was cool because it felt like you could just kind of customize however you wanted. It wasn't going to make a huge impact, but I definitely see where you're coming from as far as like,
it doesn't make a huge impact.
Exactly. But I do want to touch on the friendly fire because that was part that really kind of annoyed me.
Yeah.
Like we all came from playing a bunch of Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2 as like kids. And so we rolled into this and we were like, we're not going to do it on the easiest mode. We'll bump it up like 1 or 2 because, we've played Left 4 Dead before. And then like right outside the first room, I immediately went down because Brayden was just shooting into my back and not realizing it. And it just chewed through my health like ridiculously. And I know that there was definitely like friendly fire in Left 4 Dead, but it didn't feel as aggressive.
No.
And like I said, I know that they have cards built in that like minimize the damage or completely negate the damage from friendly fire. So maybe that's part of it is you're supposed to start on the easier mode to unlock those cards to then build up and make it easier on yourself. But I found myself really just kind of wishing that there was a toggle separately for friendly fire so that I could play on a harder difficulty but not have to worry about the friendly fire as much.
Like I want tougher bosses or a stronger swarm, but because it's almost impossible to avoid. Like the fun part about these games is like how heavy the horde can be sometimes, and they move at different paces and they move around. But especially with some of the designs, like you get coated in blood if you have a handful of melee kills in a row. The number of times I just came upon a teammate and they're just coated in blood and there's no real way to indicate who's a teammate and who's a zombie when they're that close to you. And I just like, emptied a sniper clip into a teammate. It's like, oh.
Yeah.
Well, and this isn't some sort of like tactical, like Rainbow Six shooter. This is spray and pray as the gameplay. So it's an interesting choice, one that I don't think really worked. And I could see maybe it seems like something where you would pick nightmare difficulty, the hardest difficulty setting, and it would pop up on the screen and be like, just so you know, we're turning friendly fire on in this difficulty. It doesn't seem like something that should be the standard for this type of game. Yeah,
like normal mode. Right. It had like percent friendly fire or something like that, which still felt really, really intense. And
well,
especially
and the bots.
Yeah, like the bots are terrible. Left 4 Dead bots were better, and that's saying something.
Yeah.
Like the bots just like drift in and out of your way, and they're like, "I'm here, I'm alerting the birds," and you're like, "Thank you, appreciate it."
Yep, and they constantly are getting stuck on geometry, and they are like the benefit of a bot is that it will drop you ammo immediately upon needing it, and like they can sometimes patch you up and heal you, because I don't think they really ever heal themselves. But if you get like that was another thing that you kind of mentioned earlier, Andrew, of just if you get to a point where you have to play with randoms or bots, like if they can't find random people to play with you, it'll just put the bots in, and they are garbage. They won't revive you really. Like they're supposed to. They just don't.
Very rarely do. I have had like a clutch level win when the bot revived me. But that was after it ran back and forth between me and another down teammate doing whatever internal math it had to do to decide who to revive.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, definitely some rough edges there that you can tell, you know, that it's not Valve who made this game. I think that we talk about the bots a little bit, but them as characters, I couldn't tell you any of the names, and I think that's one of the things that kind of brought the game down for me, is like, I don't know any of the character names. I don't know what's going on in the story. Like, it just feels like a fun thing to do while I'm hanging out with my friends. But like in Left 4 Dead, especially 2, like I knew those characters, I knew their banter, I understood their relationships. You know, the story was still secondary, and it, you know, it is in this game too, but it feels extremely forgettable in this game.
My other flaw with it, which is a flaw with many modern games, is that there is no couch co-op. For a game that you have to play multiplayer pretty much, it's not surprising, but it's always disappointing when a game that's meant to be a group activity is like, okay, everybody have their own Xbox, have their own TV, or have a PC, you know, have steady internet, which I lately have not had. Like,
yeah. And especially with things that this game will throw at you, like the special infected, at least at the time of recording this, I know they've come out and said that a upcoming patch will kind of tweak some of the amount of special infected it throws at you. But like if you're having internet issues, if you're playing with randoms instead of people because you can't play couch co-op, all of that kind of thing, it can get very tough when they throw 5 or 6 special infected at you, almost all of which have some sort of move that takes control away from your character, and you just have to wait for somebody to free you from it. And if you can't like talk to the person next to you on the couch, if you don't want to talk to random people, random strangers on the internet, it can kind of be tough for them to get you out of those stuns. And like, yeah, you could bring a stun gun, you could play as Evangelo, you could get better at the game, I guess. But like it takes away some of what Left 4 Dead had, I think.
Yeah, and
it's also done like over online. So if you don't have a solid internet connection, like I don't think there's a local play only with bots option.
Not at the time of recording this, anyway. I think they've said that that's something that's coming down the road, and it might be out by the time you're watching this video. But as of right now, you can't play offline, which does stink. So,
but let's talk about the worst sin that this game has committed.
The tiny font.
Somehow
I skipped over it. Even though it's in like 20 point or 27 point font on this document here.
It was so hard to read. Yeah, this game for my couch, I do feel like maybe I need to go to the eye doctor, because I am noticing that it's not just this game, but this game is the worst offender I've had to deal with in a long time, because of A, it's just so hard to read, especially like the cards and some of the menu things. But B, there's no options to do anything about it, at least not at the time we're making this video. And so like, you know, recently Halo came out, and one of the first things you could do when setting up Halo was to increase your font size by like double and then quadruple. It was like, do you want it normal? Do you want it big, or do you want it giant? And I was like, give me giant. And so there's not even an option for that in this game. And I feel like, at the point we're in now with accessibility options, this feels like
oversight.
Something so simple. Yeah, that they should have. Yeah. And I'm sure it's going to happen at some point. They'll fix it. But to not launch her, that was just a bummer.
Yeah, especially when the cards are such like a big part of this game. If the card has any text on it, which is like every card, it's almost impossible to read if like not like sitting close enough to your TV. Like I played this game for the first time on like like not my normal TV, and it was just like, what does this say? I can't tell. Like, what's going on here? So I definitely agree. And maybe that's just us being old people, but or needing to go to the eye doctor. But it definitely is a something that seems weird to be missing in this day and age.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, so now let's move on to the verdict portion. So we're going to give the game a rating S through F, about how much we like it. Kind of putting it, if you've been following us or watching some of our other videos, you kind of got a feel for where we rank certain games. And so if you tend to agree with us or our opinions on games, that might give you an idea of if you might like this game or not. So for myself, I think I'm going to give this game a B. I enjoyed my time with it. I had fun with it. I don't see myself really getting pulled back unless like I'm playing with friends or something like that. I don't think it's one that I would ever be like, oh, I'm just going to like pop this in and see if other people want to play it. Really, I think it's more so like Aubrey and Joe or somebody are like, hey, like we want to play some Back 4 Blood. You in? And I'd be like, sure, I'll boot it up. I'll play with everybody. If they continue to tweak things and improve it, and I know there's some expansions on the way and everything, that could change it. But for me, as of right now, I'm going to give it a B.
Yeah, I'm conflicted. I'm straddling the line between a high C and a low B, I think, because it does so much right with being that spiritual successor to Left 4 Dead that, similar to you, I think with a few good patches and a few balance tweaks and a few implementations of things that aren't there or need to change, the grade could go up an entire letter for me. But right now, there's just so many things that don't quite hit the mark that it brings it down, like spawning too many special infected, the friendly fire, the tiny text, like just all those kind of little things. It's kind of like death by a thousand cuts. And I still think it's a good game, and I would recommend it, especially if you have Game Pass. I think it's worth checking out. I think it's fun. I think it's a great game to play with a group of friends on a Friday night and have a good time. But I definitely wouldn't put it, anywhere near that God tier, at least not right now.
Yeah.
Aubrey? Yeah. I'm right in the solid B camp. Drifting towards a lower B. It ranks so high because if they updated the bots to where they were more helpful, if they enabled a solo mode where I could play offline, I would play this game on my own. I played Left 4 Dead 2 on my own. I just ran through it. I enjoy this style of gameplay, this like almost no consequences pray and spray type shooter. But again, with the ifs, if they fix the spawn rate of the specials, if they make the bots more more helpful, if they, if. So it has great potential. It updated a lot of things. It did a lot of things really well, and it kept the fun. But there are just so many little technical tweaks that I would give it. namely being let me play it by myself, and I would play it by myself, but you don't even let me do that. So
yeah. Well, awesome. Well, hopefully you all found this review helpful or interesting. If you want more of this kind of content, like and subscribe and get notified when we post new videos like this. If you want to hear more from us, check out our podcast. You can find that pretty much anywhere you find podcasts at your friendly neighborhood gamers. We also stream weekly on Twitch at neighborhood_gamers. And with that, remember, stay friendly, gamers.
stay friendly, gamers.